Alright, hello everyone again. Right, so our last talk today, this is George, he's come down from London. He's going to do a talk about one-joke games, and I think it has a bit of interaction, so if anyone's keen, come up and volunteer. Thanks, George.
Thanks. So at scheduled points throughout this talk, I will be asking for a volunteer from the audience. So I'm George Buckenham. I'm V21 on Twitter. I've not got slides, so otherwise that would be on the screen. So I'm a game designer, I'm a programmer, I'm currently working on a game called Mutazione, but I do have web pages, which looks like this. So that's what I'm doing full time at the moment. I'm also 1/5 of Wild Rumpus, which I'm going to promote. Come next weekend, Saturday. It'll be amazing. Some of these games will be there. You can play the game. You can play more Gang Beasts. So first I'm going to say what I'm not talking about today. So I'm talking about one-joke games, and when I say one-joke games, I don't mean games that have more than one joke. I don't mean games that are funny. Like Monkey Island is an example of a game I'm not talking about because the point of Monkey Island is to be a game, and it contains jokes, and it's really funny. Instead, I want to talk about just single joke games which are entirely there to tell a single joke really well. The entire point of the game is that joke, and everything in the game is there to reinforce that joke and make that joke funnier. And like a stand-up routine, a joke can contain other jokes within it, but it's essentially just one joke in a fractal kind of way. So, my first example. And I need an audience volunteer from the audience. And I suspect I'm not going to find anyone, but if anyone here hasn't played a game called Quap before.
Has anyone not played Quap? Come on, there must be someone. Alright, off you go.
We're going to get covered in...
No,
there's no custard.
Okay,
so first, I would like to point out this little instruction set. It sets the scene for this game. You are Quap, our small nation's sole representative at the Olympic Games. You're Eddie the Eagle, basically.
Okay.
Use the Quap keys to move your legs. Ideally, you will run 100 meters, but our training program was underfunded. Remember, it's not about whether you win or lose. Okay, so...
Thighs, calves. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Right.
That was pretty good, yeah, have another go.
One more go, okay. Okay. Any tips?
It's about rhythm and perseverance and determination. It's a real, true Olympic story.
Okay.
Come on, you can do it. 100 meters, let's go.
Okay. Fuck. Okay.
So, the beautiful thing about this game is it gives you some instructions. It gives you some instructions at the start. It tells you, press these keys, you've got to run. It sets the scene. But then the essential joke of exactly what's about to happen never gets revealed until you actually start playing. Because to do otherwise would be to spoil the joke for you.
Okay, I'm giving up on running. I just want to... Okay, I'm stopping.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if you gave more instructions than that, it would ruin the joke. And there's lots of other really small details here to complete the joke. You get a certificate for being a participant because everyone's a winner. You partook, showing real courage. Everyone is a winner. Which knowing Bennett Foddy, is him just being mean about you. But that makes the joke funnier. And there's other things actually my favourite joke in this joke comes at I think 50 meters, when it's revealed that it's not actually a sprint race. It's actually a hurdles race. And in fact, you are expected to jump hurdles whilst using these stupid controls. Yeah, so right, let's talk comedy. So I learned this from a book called How to Be a Stand-Up Comedian. It's yellow. It's a great introduction to how to be a stand-up comedian. I think it's in a range of how to be various careers you're not going to be books. So comedy works because it establishes framing and then it breaks it. So in fact, I have a short AV clip to explain this for me. Wait, what the fuck is that?
I got off the bus. Now, comedians will never fail to surprise us with their inventive way of doing the same pullback and reveal joke again and again. So I will now demonstrate the "and then I got off the bus" joke. You know, the other day I was really drunk. I woke up, I was naked, I had sick all over me, had a traffic cone stuck up my bum, I was in a state of priapic excitement. Then I got off the bus.
What? You're on a bus all along?
That's right.
I assumed you must have been on your own at home.
No, I was on a bus.
Oh, my expectations were confounded, and from thence the humour arose.
Indeed.
I mean, I always think that line there is the best definition of comedy I've ever come across. My expectations were confounded, and from thence the humour arose. In that joke, he set up a situation was set up, a world was painted, you know, you can visualise it in your mind's eye, and then suddenly... and then suddenly... No, you're wrong. It's a different thing. But it's a thing that is internally consistent with the other thing, and it's a thing that kind of exists within this kind of comedian's logic. You've got to buy into the first thing for the second bit to be funny. So the other thing I love here is a comedian called Mitch Hedberg, who has these amazing one-liners. Stuffing like, "This shirt is dry clean only, which means it's dirty." Which is great. Like, you've got a situation set up, this shirt is dry clean only, and then suddenly it's like, yep, and this is the natural consequence of it if you use this comedian's logic. Or, "I haven't slept for 10 days because that would be too long." "I got an ant farm. Them fuckers didn't farm shit." Again, yeah, it's set up a world and then it has subverted it. In the same way that Co-op has set up this world, you are a sprinter, and then has subverted it because you are completely unable to use your legs. By coincidence, the next game I would like a volunteer for is called "You Have Forgotten How to Use a Pen." Do I have any volunteers for this game?
Come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before.
And
Is that probably for the best?
yeah. I mean, it's. So the first thing I'd like to point out is this game would be about 50% as funny if the name wasn't in capitals.
What am I doing?
You need to draw letter A.
Right. I can do that. I can't do that. Oh yeah, look at that. No.
So you might not be able to see, but the control method here is the very familiar arrow keys, which are, you know, some of the simplest methods of controlling a game. The
What
arrow,
did I do wrong?
The left and right arrow keys control the rotation of the pen, and up and down control moving it backwards and forwards. Unfortunately, the arrow is drawn at an angle, which makes it very hard to predict what angle you've actually got selected. This is a game by a guy called Harry Lee.
I can do it. I can. Right, let's try a different approach. It's impossible to know what way you're going to go.
And so this is another thing that a lot of single joke games do, is they use physics or bad controls, or somehow exploit the fact that in a video game you're expected to control the situation. Control a situation using inputs to produce outputs, but that's a thing that can be easy or it can be hard.
Oh.
I give up.
And this again, so the humour again arises from, you know, you've got the framing, you have forgotten how to use a pen, and then you discover exactly how that's true. And then you live in this tiny little universe where this is actually a way your mind works. And this also has another great joke. I'm just going to spoil all of the good jokes hidden at the end of these games. This also has another great joke hidden at the end of it, where at the end it says, "Congratulations, well done. Here's your score. Now enter your name in cursive." Yeah. So this is a thing games actually I think are really well suited to do, to tell jokes in this way, because most games, or a thing that games do especially well, is they create a little kind of pocket universe which has its own set of rules that you can live within. And this is kind of comparable to the kind of magic circle concept. I don't know how many people have heard of that. It's this kind of idea that when you step into a game, you've kind of walked into this magic circle, and within there you're in a different place and the rules are different, and there's a different situation going on, and then you exist according to this kind of your own internal logic. So again, when you step into these games, you've entered into a tiny little pocket universe where the only thing that exists is letters and drawing, and you are really bad at it. You have forgotten how to use a pen. In QWOP, it's a pocket universe that's just this track and just the inability to run in this track. It's kind of essentially like cruel, absurd universe that exists only to humiliate you, but it's also funny because it's set up and then it reveals. So, but this magic circle, what's good examples of this? Like when you're playing tag, you have your own set of rules, you exist within it. When you, like LARPs are especially great for this, or D&D, you enter into this like fictional universe that's shared amongst all the participants in it. Or for example, to take video games, Burnout Paradise is an example. That's a world where you're driving around and there's a really inane radio DJ talking at you the entire time, who only reports on car crashes and like illegal road races going on in the city, and there's no people, just cars the whole time, and everything's arranged so you just smash through it. Like, it's an insane little universe, but it's internally consistent, and you know, it's fun to drive cars fast and smash through things, so that's entertaining. And games, you have to decide what you include in it and what you exclude in it, and you just need to have enough there to create a tiny little universe. And I mean, that's one of the main joys of game design, is the fact you get to create these tiny universes. And one of the main challenges of it is just then conveying it, of like saying, right, explaining how, here are the rules of this tiny universe, here is what you have to do. This is the ultimate challenge of level design, really. It's just teaching people, here's the actions you can do within this universe, here's what you are, what you can do inside this universe. Most of level design is just teaching that. Art and narrative is all there to support it, and also equally the context, how you approach the game, also teaches you the rules of this pocket little universe. There's a Tassel Stevens quote I quote very fucking often, called, "A play begins when you first hear about it and ends when you stop experiencing it." Similarly, the pocket universe exists in your mind and begins when you first hear about a game. When you first hear the title of this game is "You have forgotten how to use a pen," that's the beginning of you knowing about this game. And then when you're actually playing it, you're entered into it, and it ends when you forget about it and you forget that you've forgotten how to use a pen. Right, so I have one last game to show. This one is, I could probably do myself if no one wants to come up. It's called The Illogical Journey of the Zambonis. Pat, come up and play this.
Nice t-shirts, guys.
Yes,
Thanks.
totally planned.
Once upon a time, in a country not alone, Zambonis and men lived in peace. However, darkness brewed beneath this shallow veneer of cordiality. A political faction with irrational hatred of the Zambonis sprang forth, fully formed from the hardened skulls of wicked men. Scholars of either tribe could neither predict nor explain the rise of this faction, but the day came when this odious group took the highest power in the land, and the Zambonis found themselves exiled under threat of death. Pulling what supplies they could carry, the Zambonis purchased a single ship from a sympathetic merchant. 16 of the wisest Zambonis would travel to their ancestral homeland, an unspoiled utopia that no living Zamboni had ever seen with his own eyes. There, the Zambonis would rebuild their civilization, free from the ire of man.
So, this game is a parody of a game I played when I was a kid. Go on, select your images. which was called The Logical Journey of the Zambonis. Educational puzzle game. I believe you played as well, Pat, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you constructed these little wobbly creatures with different facial features. And you'd load up the ship as they traveled to claim a new home where they were not cruelly mistreated. Facial features for them, so you'd customise the crew.
Against all odds, the Zambonis survived the voyage across the sea. Famished and exhausted, the Zambonis were overjoyed to leave their wooden cocoon. However, they could not rest their weary bodies on this newfound land, for Zambonis were not made to live in the mountains. Their utopia must lie further inland. The Zambonis come across a curious sight. Two bridges span an impressive chasm, each bridge guarded by a massive stone face. One speaks, "Zambonis! I haven't seen the likes of you for centuries." The other responds, "Phew, damn Zambonis, something about you people makes me want to... Phew, as well, brother." One Zamboni steps forward and says, "We only seek passage across your bridges. Could you hold still your sniffles while we cross? I fear these old planks may not survive the violence of your winds." The second face replies, "I cannot help my nature any more than you could have been born a man of flesh or stone." His brother adds, "It's not all Zambonis, mind. Some of you lot I find quite tolerable. Choose wisely. Even I can't predict who can pass safely over my bridge."
So in the original game, this was a logic puzzle where you have to
The
predict what
first
features
Zamboni crosses without incident.
would kill your Zambonis.
The second Zamboni joins her relieved comrade. The third Zamboni finds his passage cut short by a mighty exhalation that sends him flying to the rocky depths below. It is not likely any Zamboni could survive such a fall. At this point, the Zambonis are stunned. They intellectually knew the risks involved in their voyage, but nothing could prepare them for the emotional impact of seeing a friend die before their eyes so soon after their landfall. How absurd. How utterly absurd that fate has contrived to strip them of first their freedoms and now their lives. Back home, their mortality never rested on a coin flip. The survivors steel themselves, for they know that this gauntlet is the only way forward, and this death is merely the first of many. The fourth Zamboni crosses, an expression of terror stuck on his face. He barely realizes when he reaches the other side. The fifth Zamboni casts a look of scorn towards the detestable faces as he passes overhead. The faces fail to meet his gaze. The sixth Zamboni nearly jumps off the bridge himself when the stone face begins to contort. It is a mercy he did not. Oh, false alarm. Upon seeing the face begin his deadly sneeze, the seventh Zamboni tries to flee. His efforts prove fruitless as he plummets to his death. One Zamboni speaks out, "Your hateful air has slain two of the gentlest souls ever to walk this earth. Cease your unkind breath, lest you harm a third." The first face replies, "You are but visitors in our realm." The second adds, "I don't see why we have to change our behavior when it's your presence that irritates our lungs. Just don't cross my bridge if you think I'll sneeze. It's as simple as that." The eighth Zamboni crosses with a confidence that proves to be well placed. See? Simple. The ninth Zamboni matches his friend's swagger, but fails to match his results. "I guess it's not so simple after all." One Zamboni cries out, "How can you be so cavalier about murdering a fellow thinking creature?" "Little Zamboni, from this cliff I have seen more thinking creatures live and die than you will ever know in your brief life. You don't even care, do you? Your quest means little to me and my brother. We will shed no tears when you're gone." A mighty sneeze shakes the bridge underneath the 10th Zamboni's feet, sending her to an untimely death. Her former lover cries, Just tell us, O great mountain gods, what you wish of us. Why did you kill her and not me? Why did you deem me worthy of survival? Is it my appearance, my courage, my speed? Your comrades died? You didn't. It wouldn't be wise to read any intent into these occurrences. The next Zamboni shares the fate of the 2 prior participants in this mad game. The surviving Zambonis are silent. It is clear that these stone gods are incapable of listening to reason. The 12th Zamboni says a small prayer before crossing. He makes it across. The 13th glides across the bridge in silence. As does the 14th. And the 15th. And finally, the 16th joins the others on the far end of the cliff. In all, the stone faces slew 5 Zambonis. The 11 survivors follow the path onward. They say nothing to each other on this leg of the voyage, each dealing with this grief in his or her own secret, internal way. Some are lost in thought. Some try the hardest to remember the fallen, to commit their faces, names, and deeds to memory. Some are already feeling those memories fade. Some try to block out their own thoughts and concentrate entirely on the task of moving forward. Some of them are even successful.
How can you bear to live with yourself, Pat?
There's garbage trucks with faces.
They're not garbage trucks, they're Zambonis.
No,
They're devices for smoothing out ice in ice rinks.
okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that joke is even funnier to me than to other people. I think it's funny for other people as well. I mean, I hope so. Other people laughed. But it's especially funny to me because I have the extra context of having played Zumbinis, where it's a maths game founded on, you know, the triumph of pure reason to make your way in the world. And this is another example of like a one-joke game where it's not physics-based. It's not you know, the choices you make. It's not your failure to interact. Instead, it is just it presents this world convincingly and I think quite compellingly. It presents this world and then it undercuts it and it extends this world on to the point of absurdity. And I mean, actually, if you think about it, the world in all 3 of these games is cruel and harsh and uncaring and ultimately only contains failure, tragedy and loss. Unless you're really good at running in co-op, in which case you can win. But yeah, so I really love these because they illustrate so much of the power of games to create these tiny little universes, these tiny little pocket universes that you can make express very different things, and and the same principles of this apply in other contexts. So I don't know who here has heard of a game called Train. What?
Just saying nobody says anything.
So Train is a board game by Brenda Braithwaite. So in it there are 3 train tracks and there's various rules you have, but you need to fill up your trucks with passengers and get them across to the other side of the board. When you get to the other side of the board, you flip over a card to reveal your destination. And it's revealed that, in fact, your destination is a concentration camp. And the whole time you've been doing it, you've been competing to take Jews to a concentration camp. And the rest of the game all kind of reinforces this. It's played on a broken window, referencing Crystal Act. The instructions are typed with an original SS typewriter that she's had for it on onion skin there. The little pieces go inside just like cattle trucks, and they don't fit inside very well. They're deliberately, you have to shove them in a kind of ugly way. Some players halfway through realise the purpose of the game and start trying to sabotage other players, start hiding it. One time I played it at GDC last year, somebody was playing it and was secretly just taking the people pieces and hiding it under like a bit of paper she had there. And then when the game was over, she was like, yeah, I saved these Jews. And it works on exactly the same principles of creating a world. And the reason it's so effective as moving as a game is because it sets up this world and then it reveals more about it that continues it on in that same direction and kind of makes logical sense with it. So these same techniques can be used not for the purposes of humour, but to convey deep emotional experiences. Yeah, that's me.
Thanks very much, George. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah. That's good. No, well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming so much. That's our last talk for the weekend. But all the games are open and playable until 6 today. So please hang out, play some more games, have a chat, and have some more fun. And thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you to all of my volunteers as well.
Oh, thanks, volunteers. Thanks, it was really great.